being present for my boys, I think is the most valuable thing I can give them. When they say, "Dad, I really wish we just go hunting today when it's white-tailed deer season." Why? And I gotta go in the office, or you know what? You're right. Let's go. It's taking those important times of their life.
Hey, welcome everyone to episode number 4 of the Valor Vision Podcast. We are absolutely blessed today because, as you can tell, we are graced with our great friend, great personal friend of mine, that, believe it or not, we met on TikTok. If you may have already noticed, I'm wearing a hat, and this is actually his morning jam. And of course, as you can see on Nate Cooper's shirt there. So it is Pastor Nate Cooper that is joining us today. And we're going to be diving into the real weight of fatherhood, right? The responsibility and everything that it comes with it. And so let's dive into it. But as you know, before Nate kind of runs away with this, let's get into a bio of who he is. Today, the guest is Nate Cooper. Nate was born and raised in Missouri and has spent his life rooted right there in his hometown. He graduated high school in 2000 and stepped into ministry early, serving as a youth pastor and launching a college ministry back in 2007. Around that same time, he was also working in radio, where he eventually became a morning show host. Go figure. Right? And Nate is a graduate of Johnson University, earning a degree in ministry leadership and Bible theology. He's been part of several short-term missions trips, and I'd love to hear some about those, where all you went, because those are always fun. And in 2015, he returned home, where he is now serving as full-time as a senior minister of his church. Beyond the church, he's deeply involved in community, serving on the local school board and hosting The Jam, which is a live TikTok radio like show on weekday mornings, where, as you know, I'm definitely part of the Jamly, is what we call. And so I know many of our Jamly members will be watching this. And so shout out to everybody that we call family on The Jam on there as well. And so, and most importantly, Nate has been married for 19 years to his wife, an elementary school teacher. I'm sure she teaches you a lot. And together, they're raising 3 sons that are 18, 16, and 12. And so I definitely have him on here because my kids are not teenagers yet, and so his are. And so I'm hoping to learn a lot today, but this plays a big role in how he views faith, leadership, and fatherhood. Welcome, Nate Cooper. How you doing?
Oh, thanks, Nick. I appreciate you. And of course, being on the jam and just the friendship that you and I have developed. So thank you for bringing me on episode 4. I cannot believe you said you're going to venture on in this podcast realm. And I'm like, yes, go for it. Let's do it.
Yeah, you've been telling me that for about a year, and then I finally started, as I mentioned in my first episode, where I kept kicking it down the road. But you've definitely been an encouragement to me, and then yeah, it's just been awesome. I think it's pretty amazing that our friendship started literally on TikTok. I kind of joined this crazy show, The Jam. You noticed I was doing dad jokes, and then we started out that way, and then ever since then we just kind of and encourage each other, chatting off on the phone outside of being live on there. You come to in Philly and visited and all that kind of great stuff. And then we went to man camp together and had Phil with us and all that fun stuff. And so an absolute great brotherhood that we have. But, I think some of the other things that I think people want to also know is not just the amazing part of your background, but as we dive into the subject of fatherhood today, is really like, what was Nate Cooper's home life like, right? What was it like with your parents? And specifically, how was your father towards you, and how did that shape, mold, and grow you into the man and then now the father and even pastor you are today?
Well, growing up, I mean, I obviously was loved and cared for. I think by looking at my parents, they've been married, they're still married. They were married in the early 80s, and I'm a middle child. And so people say you have that middle child syndrome. I'm like, yeah, you do. But my brother was 2 years older than I was. And so my parents were raising kids. They didn't have any instruction manuals raising kids. I would say mostly we had everything that we ever needed. We were provided for, we were cared for, we were nurtured. The only thing that lacked in my family, that if I were to be honest, was faith. My mom and dad did not express their faith. They both grew up in Christian homes. My dad grew up through the Church of Christ, where my grandma and grandpa attended, and then and my grandma still attends there. When he moved out of the house at the age of 18, he ventured off and found my mom, and they got together, and of course had my older brother, but never once would they grace the doors of church together. And so that was the only thing outside of anything that was provided for us was missing, was our faith. But he was a strong working man. He worked all the way, as much as he could, providing for us. I always joke around saying he provided two roofs over our head because, like I said, we're poor into the standards of society. But in my eyes, we had everything.
Mhm.
And when my younger sisters came along, we had to expand the house, which was a trailer house, which we moved back to Missouri at that time at a young age. And he literally put a roof over that trailer house, which he added on to. And so I always make the joke, he provided two roofs over our head. Your dad only provided one roof over your head. And strong work ethic. He always had us go out and chop wood, stack wood out in his wood shop. Whenever he had some time off, we would spend time out there. Mom, I was more of a mama's boy though. So grew up more around her and going up to my grandparents' house. And yeah, so being a middle child, being cared for, it was always great. The background, yeah, we raised up group here in Missouri and still in Missouri, and we have not really left yet. The goal, though, is not near future, in the future, yes, we would love to venture out and not make Missouri our retirement.
Mhm. Yeah. I would say, like, so then as that childhood goes, where does, hey, ministry becomes, because as you're saying, your parents didn't, basically express faith in the house, which I think is very common for a lot of guys, or at least if they were, like in my life, my mom expressed faith a lot. My dad was, whatever to it. At least that's the view that I got. And so I wasn't ever shown how men express faith in a healthy way or at all. Right. And I think from there, and both of us being in ministry, you being a senior pastor, it's like, how does that happen? How does that go from that was a small segment to almost a no segment in your life to, oh my gosh, that's my career now, in addition to the biggest part of my life that affects my life.
Well, faith is given in a measure, and where you place your faith depends on what your outcome is. And for me, you know, I wasn't raised, and so it was my grandma and her faith, and both my grandmas played an intricate part in raising me in my faith. My one grandma who lived right next to us would attend a church down the road, a mile down the road. Sometimes she would walk because my grandpa didn't go. That men of faith was not a prominent role. Even I think that's just across the board. You said we then. I would go with her at age 13, and it was in that I was coming to the revelation of who Jesus was and why Jesus came to do what he did. And it really provoked me and inspired me like, wow, someone really cares for you. Like, I know what love is, but I wasn't experiencing love like that ever. And so that agape love, and I go, I want more of that. And it was in that time, of course, chasing girls in school, going to another school, another church, because that's where the girls attended. I went there, and it was in that church. I was underneath a pastor at the time. It was more of a Baptist. He did a lot of hellfire and brimstone preaching, but it was the way that he communicated outside the pulpit to me that inspired. And I think seeing him resonate with people like me or others, it really inspired me to go, let's do more of this. I want to do what he's doing. I never thought being a minister would be a full-time job. I always figured bivocational, the area in which we grew up in, you don't have to have a degree to be a minister. You just have your mom and pops, you have your family churches, people would attend. And so when attending that church there, I got my grandma to come. I even got my mom to start coming over to the church. And I just started seeing that if you start playing a role, other people can fall into place. I didn't choose to be a pastor. I'll be honest. be frank with you. Being a pastor is not a choice, it's a calling. And I knew that I was called to minister in some shape and some fashion. And I'll still tell you to this day, right here, point blank, senior ministry is why would God call anyone into senior ministry? I don't know. I'm still learning. But yeah, pastor's a calling, and I believe that it was in that time frame that I go, okay, God, here I am, send me. And there was a message during that time that was preached out of the book of Isaiah, where Isaiah was saying he was a man of unclean lips, and I remember that message. And the guy was who was preaching. He said, "You can change the man with all of circumstances, but you can never change the God inside the man. God is constant. God is divine, and He's the one that's going to be holding you steadfast." And I go, "I want that. I want that guy. I want that God." And so
Mhm.
that to me, it kind of inspired me to take this realm of pastorship, youth ministry first, then college ministry, and then of course now in senior ministry.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I think I want to dive into that because I think that that also will have. I think any of the professions any of us have do have some effect on how we also father and how we take care of our sons, and because there's a level of what we do does get passed down, and our vocation or career, whatever adjective you want to call it, that will play a role. And we definitely, if you're in the church world, you kind of have, there's already a pre notion of like what PK kids are like, pastor kids are like. And so, that's going to be part of it. You know, I think that my time in the military has shaped how I look at fatherhood, and then, of course, my dad too, and so those things are gonna matter. How do you think that your faith and, leading in the church and, all of that is kinda shaped out, how you've seen fatherhood and how you've operated as a dad?
Well, any type of calling is going to reflect the character of God. And I have to and I must reflect that character. Though imperfect, though being, rough around the edges, remind my kids daily it's a work in progress. I have not arrived, and don't ever think that I've arrived since you came into this world. There's challenges that will take place. And I know that if I were to be a father to my children, then I need to be like my father is in heaven to me.
Mm,
And I need to be relational. I need to be nurturing. I need to provide for them. I need to be present. I need to have all this being rooted in love and not control. Don't parent from a domineering, controlling aspect, but parent from the character that is to flow through you and from you. And you mentioned, preacher's kids. My wife and I had our from the get go. We said when we took this calling of senior ministry, 15, I said I don't want my kids labeled as PK kids. I don't want them to see me as someone who's different in public and different at home. I said I want the church to know my family is first, and
mhm,
then the church comes secondary. And that's been challenging, but I don't want them to see my kids as PK kids, well, they must be more holier than all thou. Like, no, no, they're just like you and they're just like me. And we're going to run through the church because you know why? We can run through the church. And I know you're going to frown upon that, but we're going to do this because there's life. We are running through the church. There's life in this church. So, I mean, that's that different way to go. But yeah, it's got to be shaped and rooted in love, and flowing from the character of God.
yeah, no, absolutely. I think a lot of us guys, no matter where we come from, there is a level of we have pre-expectations before the kids come. We have this idea of I'm going to be this type of dad, right? If I'm going to show up, I'm going to do this. This is the type of dad I want to be. And then the kids come and then they start growing and they start having their own personalities and then they start reflecting parts of you. And how does that all change from what your pre-expectations were to what, man, like fatherhood's so much different, or maybe it's not different from what your pre-expectations were.
Well, I mean, everyone thinks that parenting is going to be easy. You wake up and you smell the roses, but they forget that roses comes with thorns.
Mhm.
And when you're raising your kids, those personalities will come through. And the things that you least like about your spouse will be seen in your kids. The things that you least like about yourself are going to be seen in your kids. And you go, well, I'm just not going to deal with it. And so there's times those expectations you go, it's easier to almost dismiss it and be passive and hoping that it will just fix itself. But I've learned that you cannot be passive in parenting. There is no passive parenting. An absent father cannot be done in raising a kid right. Now, you can be a husband and not be a father. You can be a father and not be a husband. Vice versa with women. You can be a wife without being a mom. You can be a mom without being a wife. That's challenging. You're adding
Mhm.
more responsibilities onto yourself, and I think that to me, those expectations. So you're wrestling with those dynamic young minds of who you were as a kid and who you are now, and you butt heads. I'll be honest, you will butt heads. There's no way around it. You're going to have to figure out and navigate. Okay, God, how am I going to do this? I need your help. I mean, I honestly, I'm not going to be able to do this on my own. I need your help.
What were some of the areas that you think, like, top of your head that go, man, this one kind of smacked me in the mouth. I really need to, I need God's help because I don't know what to do in this scenario.
Patience, 100% patience. Your kid is learning, and your kid is a sponge, and your kid is wanting to develop. They're developing their mind, and so they look at you as a, "What do you mean, Dad? What do you mean by that?" And in my prideful state would go, "You're questioning me," but they're questioning the process. And so me learning was that they're never really questioning you. They're questioning the process. Growing up, it was patience. I would explain something. It could be something minor, like, hey, go put your toys in your box in your room. Well, their mind is, I'm still playing with the toys. Or they'll put one away and they don't put them all away. And then you get frustrated. And then you get down and you try to do it for them and you put them away. And then within an hour later, they pull them all back out. And you go, well, what are you doing? We're done with it. But their mindset moved from one thing to one thing to one thing, and it's already out the window, and you're learning that. So those dynamic young minds, 3 kids, 3 boys, as we've said, is challenging, is 100% challenging.
Yeah, no, I've got my 2 boys much younger than yours right now, and then I also have my little girl, which she takes a different angle to kind of, talk with and wrestle, and there's times where she wants to play with the boys, but then she doesn't want what it takes to play with the boys and be, like, kinda rough, and then she can't handle the rough when it's too rough, versus the other kids are like, "What's wrong?" And so a little girls are definitely a little different, but the, having boys is wild, They oh my gosh, they love to challenge, and I think on that talk about challenging, I think one of the common things that all of us face is you say something, right? Scenario, right? You say something, you say, "Hey, no, we're not having, like, no more food. Kitchen's closed for the night," right? All the kids want to eat snacks all the time. Like, in at least mine do. You go, "No, we're not eating anymore." They run upstairs, they go to mom, and they're like, "Mom, I want some crackers." She's like, "Just get some crackers." And like, "Wait a minute." And they come back down and go, "Mom said this," and they play the mommy daddy game on you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, how do you handle that in the Cooper house?
I just say, I don't care what your mom said. Just say,
I hope she didn't watch this. No, I'm just kidding.
I might have missed something. I think your kids must see, if you're co-parenting, they must see you as a united front.
Mhm.
So if your kid comes to you in that scenario and says, "Well, mommy said," well, I don't care what mommy said, is probably a poor reflection on my part, because her and I should have discussed what was, and we're weak. She caved and she shouldn't have caved. But at that point, I go, your mommy messed up, but I'm not going to tell that to my son. I'm going to simply say, let's think about this real quickly. Your mommy really said this? Are you sure? Because it is this hour. And number 2, you could probably wet the bed. Number 3, are you going to do your own laundry? I think you gotta parent. What was I going to, it's about parenting. Most of your parenting doesn't happen in front of your kids. It happens behind closed doors. because you are going to talk with your spouse to come up with a united front to your kids. And it goes back to those expectations. Like if we as a family say, we're not going to eat past 9 o'clock, we're not going to eat past 9 o'clock. And if your mom has you go to the kitchen, I'm going to remind the kid, hey, you know our rule. We can't eat past 9. Your mom might have forgot the time. And then I go to her and say, hey, do you realize the time? Yeah, but I was going to be a little more lenient. Well, this is the rules that we need to go by. Must not sway from them. And so the parenting happens a lot behind closed doors. You're going to you got to have that united front. You have to have that united front with your kids because
Mhm.
otherwise your kids will pin it against you. It'll come. It will happen. If you don't have that united front, one day your child is going to say, well, I know who to go to ask for this and know who to go to ask for that.
There's a reason why episode 2 was about marriage, and then now episode 4 is talking about kids. And it's because I think both you and I see eye to eye on that the marriage must come first, right? The marriage has got to be first, because if the marriage isn't united and strong and all that, then parenting becomes more of a challenge. What are some, like, I guess, tips in that regard, as far as making sure, hey, we're on the same front and we don't stray from that, like, hey, kind of deal, and having those talks, and where's all that kind of build to make sure that mom and dad are on the same front, and the kids see that.
I think it works best if you do it again, not in front of your kids of a disagreement. I'm not going to argue in front of my kids. I'm not going to fight in front of my
Mhm.
kids. I'm not going to talk to her disrespectfully because I want that to be modeled by my boys. I don't want them to talk to her in a disrespectful way. And if we can navigate life and communicate these things, now there are times you're going to have that in the car or say in the living room or at the kitchen table. But I think more of those opportunities are going to be spent when you're with your spouse. You need to spend time with your spouse one on one, and it doesn't need to have any kind of conversation with kids. But then there's the element that, hey, we need to talk about this because our first child is dealing with this, or our second child dealing with that. What did your mom and dad do? And those are conversations you have early on in parenting. Is that, well, I remember being raised and my dad did this, and then she'll say, well, my mom did this. And there's that conflict of interest in a sense, or conflict. And you're going to try to navigate that. Well, I don't want like what my parent did, so I'm not going to do that. I don't like what your parent did, so we're not going to do that. And so it's an agreement. You got to work it out, and don't just talk about it and then not have a plan of action.
Yeah, it's like, kind of like, what's the death sentence of telling your wife you're starting to act like your mom? And it's like, and they have the memes now of, like, that person has just passed away, and they play the I will remember, kind of like, don't do that.
Like talking dirty to your wife is not on the lines like, hey, baby, hey, honey. It's just calling her by her mom's names, like, hey, Teresa, that's dirty. You don't talk to me that way.
Oh yeah, no, that's not the good. That's not the good type that we want.
No.
That's not the marriage building type. Oh man. Um, I think the other part of it is, so then we see the kids try to play mommy daddy game, whatever, but kids get out of line. They're gonna test the boundaries, they're gonna do all the different things. They're also gonna try to get away with what they can get away with. Um, because it's all learning episodes for them. But how do you look at discipline in the house? And I think that, here's my question to you. Do you see discipline changes, or at least the method in which how you discipline changes by the age brackets or stages of life that they're in? Like, I'm clearly an infant. There's hardly any discipline because they just don't recognize it, right? Versus a teenager and all the stages in between.
The proverb is it Proverbs 13, verse 24. It says, spare the rod, you're going to hate the child. It actually has the word hate in it. If you spare the rod early on in life, you're going to be raising hellions, and the dynamics are different. My oldest, I'll be straight up with you. My oldest is the most stubborn individual. He takes a lot of after his father and a lot after his mom, but he is so stubborn to the point that he won't give in. We tried the belt, we tried the wooden spoon, we tried not like early on as you said, but really early, at the age of 4, 5, 6, 7, and all this stuff it worked, but he was a communicator. He wanted you to sit and talk. He wore you out before you wore him out.
Mm,
And I think, even up to this day, we just had we just had a conversation about it 3 weeks ago with him, and it's 3 hours. 3-hour conversation at 11 o'clock at night. "You're tired. I'm tired. Listen." And he's just not you're not getting through to him. And even in the local school board, I wanna say this, there's discipline and policy that you give. There's the corporal punishment, which is probably not heard of it across the United States right now. Our
right.
school still enforces it. I think it's more effective at a younger age than it is at the older age. Having after school detention or in school detention or any of those works way better than doing like a corporal punishment in a sense. So I think early on, it's better to get your bluff in. I hate to say it that way. It's better to have them know early on than try to do it later on, because then it's like the proverb says, you're gonna hate that. Discipline is important. Discipline means I love you, and that is a reflection from the father.
I think that becomes like a really contentious area. And of course, I'm not afraid to go into it even more, but you see like the contention of, I think, current modern day society of going almost like, right. You have the stories of like our parents and our grandparents saying like they went to pick out the switch that they got beat with. Right. But then you have the nowadays of, if you touch your kid, child protective services like coming after you or something. And these hyper extremes of all the way to where, yeah, you were borderline or even over the line on abuse versus, hey, this is way too soft and you're letting the kids just think that they have free reign. How do you manage like kind of that middle ground of this is worthy of this level of kind of discipline versus, hey, that's too much.
Never discipline out of anger.
Mm,
If a child does something wrong, like my boys can attest to it, it would be more harsh and more damaging if I were to discipline them in the wrath than in my anger, than let it cool off and discipline them out of love. That time that is spent between how disappointed I am to still being disappointed, but I'm not operating out of that anger. I'm operating more out of, I want this to help you learn. I want this to curve. I want this so you can be understood. Discipline is a discipleship, in my opinion. You're
mm,
discipling them, you're teaching them. That's why you're disciplining them. You're teaching them not to do wrong. You're teaching them to not do something. And in the same hand, it's like you got to show them love. And so I never, in my parenting thus far, would ever operate in that realm of correcting them out of my anger. I would wait, give it a few minutes to an hour. I'd give it an hour or two. Some days it'd be all day long. And what was worse for the child was that waiting period.
yeah.
My child got swats one day at school for doing something. He disrespected another teacher in a way, and he had to get corporal punishment. And I'm like, well, that's a little severe, in my opinion. But the rule goes, if you get it at school, you get it at home. And we waited. He waited. He just knew it was coming.
Hmm.
And I think that wait was more of a learning period for him. Like, I never want to do this again because I don't want that to take place. So for me, that waiting period was more of a lesson than the actual uh, punishment that he actually received with a SWAT.
Yeah, no, my gosh, I can remember a specific story of, I think I told you this one when I was like in second grade. And this girl, Katie, just kept calling me Nickelodeon, and it just right up my spine, like bugged me like crazy. And so she keeps calling me Nickelodeon on the playground at recess and stuff. I'm chasing after her to like try to make her stop. I finally catch her. I actually pick her up and straight like just drop her on the ground, like body slam her in second grade. And I remember at the moment, like the teacher coming over, screaming at me. She's crying. I instantly feel pretty bad. But then after that, I don't remember the school, like, really doing anything other than just yelling at me, but it was the "Wait till your dad gets home," right? And my dad played Army football, at West Point, and a defensive guy, so he's he's no light cookie, right? And he comes home and he's like, "Forget that, like, if I'm gonna discipline you, it's coming from my hand directly." Like, that was always his thing, when it came to that, and I did. I remember getting spanked pretty good for that one. I remember sitting down and it hurting for a period of time. But then I think the worst thing really was the next day. I went into the class 5 minutes late on purpose. My dad brought me to school, came in 5 minutes late on purpose. So that way the whole class was already sitting down. And then I was brought to the front and I had this embarrassing giant bouquet of flowers, right? And I had to say, "Katie, I'm really sorry for hurting you on the playground. Will you please forgive me?" In front of the whole class and in front of her, and then gave her the flowers, and she did. She did give me a little kiss on the cheek and said, "It's okay." I do remember that. If Katie, for some reason, you're out there, this was I forgot what the school name was, but it was outside of Fort Stewart, Georgia in the '80s, and, if Katie, if you're out there, I hope I wonder if you remember that or not. I don't know. I have no idea wherever she went off to, but anyway, that was, kind of like one of those stories where you said talking about the waiting, it just I could tell, like, it was like, "Wait till your dad gets home," and that, man, when dad gets home, kinda like the whole, to be honest, "Your ass is grass" type
Yeah.
thing,
You're
you know?
you're walking on eggshells and you just better
Yeah,
it's coming.
like, maybe they'll forget. Maybe they'll no, they don't forget.
Never.
You gon' get it. I think on the flip side of discipline also teaches, I think our example as dads teach, if not even more, right? Like you said, you don't want to ever have an argument with your wife in the open, right? Sometimes you'll have disagreements, but they got to remain within a respectful boundary. Like, you're not going to talk down about her, you're not going to disrespect her in front of the kids, all those kinds of things. And those are good. But when it definitely comes to also our faith, as we're both guys that we didn't see our dad exercise any spiritual disciplines in their life, scripture reading, prayer, fasting, anything like that at home. Does that play a part in the Cooper household? Do they see you? What do you think about, like, the kids witnessing you play those things out as far as like teaching them?
The biggest thing is I wish I could say that they see me sitting there reading the word and, with rainbows in the background and lights illuminating like, "Oh, dad, he's reading the word. Look at this." Sorry. I think the biggest thing that they can see is just me being present
Hmm.
in all things of what God did for us is that he was a relational God and he came to dwell with us. He literally took on our flesh. And the fact was is that he was present in the midst of sinners. And for me, even though my dad did not exercise or express that faith, he was a present dad. And it spoke, I think, from his roots, his foundations of being raised in a home that his dad and mom was present, that he knew that he needed to be present with his kids. And so being present for my boys, I think is the most valuable thing I can give them when they say, "Dad, I really wish we just go hunting today when it's white-tailed deer season." Why? And I gotta go in the office or you know what? You're right. Let's go. It's taking those important times of their life when they make a request like that they're requesting, "I just want you to be near, dad. I just want you to be here. Are you gonna be home? I'll be home for you." And to me, that is the way to do it because a lot of times people often articulate church as being a religious activity and
Hmm.
you do something on Sunday or Wednesday. I don't want them to see that as something different. So there's that challenge to make a merge, to make it as one. And as long as they hear me communicate with the church that my family comes first for them, they know that I will be present in their life. And I think that will speak most to them.
Yeah, no, I think all of that. Um, I think that's the biggest part. Basically, I think the biggest thing out of what you just said is, and biblically speaking, may your yes be yes and your no be no. right? If you tell your kids you're going to be there, you better be there. Like if anybody you ever have to go, I'm sorry I said yes, I'm going to have to say no now. May that never be your kids, because I think that they hold on to that a lot more, and quite honestly, I have less grace for that than other people because we as fathers matter so much to them, and so that's a big deal. I think for me, that's also one of the things is I want them to see me doing certain things and showing them how, even on the spiritual discipline side, that this isn't something that just mommy does. Like daddy does this too, right? This is where I get strength from, and things of that nature when it comes to that. But I think I also want to guard against the idea of church is a burden, because it's like, oh, this is what takes dad away from me, or this is what consumes more of dad's time than me, right? So I also want to guard against that perception that could actually lead my kids away from the faith, in the
Yeah.
other regard.
And I failed at that too. There's times in my oldest one's 18, and he's seen the burden of
Mhm.
times when people hurt me or people hurt someone else, and I might express it not to him like, "I can't believe this." It's more of the lines he can see the weight. And, I've done a poor job at that at times. So yeah, that's some good advice, even for any parent listening right now, is that in ministry, or any father who's in ministry, is just to not let that burden be seen by the kids. I mean, it's good to see you in your weak in those weak areas, but don't let that define their perspective.
You kind of I think you already made a great segment for the next question that I've kind of got is, man, none of us are ever perfect as a father, right? We're trying to do the best we can, but we are, of course, in our faith, it says we are still sinners. You're right. We're still imperfect, and God's always working on us to do better. But when those mistakes happen, how do you handle those with your kids?
I wish I could just say, "Hey, it's my mom and dad's fault. So go talk to your grandparents." But they see
Sometimes that's true.
it is.
Sometimes that's true.
But what
Don't take that away from all of us.
and they see the grandparents is like, "What? They're not that bad. They're
No, they
great.
give me candy. They spoil me. They're never wrong.
How dare you even do that? Give that to my son." Like, now they're gonna expect me to give that to them when all you gave me. um, the biggest thing is just to ask for grace. I hope that I've can communicate grace to them enough that they could offer grace too. I think in all of that, if they could offer grace, give grace as it's been given. I go back to, I try to train them in knowledge and wisdom with God's word, with life experiences is the second thing. And that's going to come in all shapes and sizes through their raising up in their school and their context, their community, their friendships, their being as a child, their relationships when they get older, with in my mine being boys with the girls. And the third thing is, on that leg of just knowing exactly, we have knowledge, wisdom, experience, and then we have the feeling. They're gonna go through life with that feels good, that doesn't feel good. And I want to, in my mistakes, let them learn that mistakes will happen. You've gotta let them refine you. Don't give up on a mistake. And I need to communicate that more with them. It's like, you're gonna screw up. You're gonna fail more than you will succeed. And there's a saying that says, like, life is a dance. And I add to that statement and I say, yeah, life is like a song, but you're gonna stumble. So when you stumble, make it part of the dance, and people won't even know it. They'll just like, "Oh, look at that." That's a new dance move. So I want to tell my kids is that they're going to learn the most in their experiences that I can't give them, that no one else will give them, but they alone will have. That they must not let that mistake in that experience define who they are, but it's to refine them for who God wants them to be.
Yeah, for when they make the mistake, right? And then of course our own. I think at the stage my kids are at, I kind of sit down, and when there's a moment to honestly get their attention, which is so much more difficult in the ages of screens and tablets and everything, right? When I'm able to get their attention and really kind of know that they're focused on having this conversation, for me, what I've found has worked, and of course, this more works for my 8-year-old versus the 2-year-old, is just having that heart for heart and just saying, hey, guess what? I've never been a dad before you, and I'm still learning. And I hope that you forgive me for whatever, mistake I did, or, I missed this, or I didn't do this, or I got too heated over a situation that I shouldn't got heated over, or whatever the case may be. And just go, hey, regardless of maybe I may have messed up in my reaction or action, I still love you no matter what. That doesn't take away the love that I have for you. That's what I've done. It works at least for my 8-year-old, and then he loves hugs and all that kind of good stuff. And then we play some video games or something.
Yeah.
The 2-year-old is we're still working on him, and he's another animal.
That's interesting because my oldest, we just like I said, we've recently had a long conversation with him. When you think about your kids, that conversation you have is like, "Hey, listen, I understand we were either harsh in your mind, it was unfair to you." I think that was the word that were used. Is like, "It's just not fair that you let number 2." I name him number 1, number 2, number 3. It's just easy to memorize that way. "It's not fair you let number 2 have this or have that." Like, "What do you mean it's not fair? You told me whenever I get this age that they were that they can only have it when they get that age." I'm like, and now learning about that, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you had to wait long. It's not about an age factor, it's a mature factor. "Well, he's not more mature than I am." I'm like, "I get it, I get it. I messed up. I am sorry, okay? We should not have done that. Can you forgive me?" And that's where that grace comes in is, yeah, you're right. I think your first child, middle if you have more than one child,
Hmm.
your younger children will learn how you parent the older one, and they will see the mistake. They'll go, "Mom messed up. Dad." And they go, "I can get away with that." Or
Yeah.
they also on the other side go, "Huh, I don't wanna do that.
Mm-mm.
My older sibling messed up, and I don't wanna be in that situation." I think that helps when you're trying to develop your younger kids from the 8 to 2-year-olds, like, "Oh, yeah, you're right. Your younger ones will learn from how you parent your older ones." And unfortunately, your first child does not come out with an instruction manual. Your first child does not have a blueprint. Just simply do your best. We will make mistakes. I'm gonna make a mistake as a parent, and I think your younger kids will have more grace than your older one does. I'm just being frank, being shooting it straight. They will have more grace.
I will tell you, us guys normally don't care about an instruction manual anyway, because we would never have read it, even if they did come out with one. But there's no customer support number either, right? Like in the moments, there's no customer support line, right? But that's also, I think, as this is geared towards us guys, that is why us men need to also hold each other up and build each other up and have these discussions as guys of like, hey, what do you do as a dad? No, what do you, dude? Is your kid like this? Like, what do you do? And have those honest talks and be like, yeah, man, my kid did this before. And I'll tell you what not to do is XYZ, and at least that helps narrow it down. Or somebody says, hey, man, what worked for me is um, sitting them down, taking them to McDonald's or whatever, and just getting their focus and having a chat over a hamburger or something. Right. And,
Yeah.
I say McDonald's, shout out to my friend Gary that, that works at one. So they're always on my mind. Gary, he came to Man Camp
Yeah,
with us,
yeah.
but that's one of the biggest things I think with fatherhood is that, again, just like anything else in our life, not to do that alone. Do you have other guys around you? I know you and I get to chat here and there, but you know, I'm outside of Philly, you're in Missouri. So do you have other guys like more that you're able to sit down with and things like that you've talked fatherhood through?
I'm a pastor at a church. You think people wanna be friends with pastors?
That's a yes and no question.
I've been fortunate to have a few godly men in the church that we've been acquainted with, who we've seen them model true biblical fatherhood and seeing what they did and go, "Well, I don't wanna my kid's not gonna have that, and we're not gonna do it that way." And we learn from their mistake. They are more than happy to share they messed up. And I think that those conversations that I've had with them have refined and reshaped in some of the ways that we are raising our kids. And there's several people that will extend an advice of how to raise your kids. And it's like, well, I get it, but your kid's different than mine. But there are times that they offer those suggestions, like you said. Maybe you should spend more one-on-one time with each of your kids independently to
Mhm.
where it's just you and them. And I go, that was some wise advice. I appreciate that. And so I took their advice, whether it be from a mom or a dad, and they say, try it. Just try it. Don't knock it until you try it. Hands down, some of the best advice that's been ever given to me is yes, do it. Do it that way. And so yeah, having those people in the church, outside the church have been beneficial too.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I've heard that same advice a lot, and I've heard that early on, which has really helped because then, when my middle one is my little girl, and so when she came, it was absolutely like, man, there's a difference here, and so spending that one-on-one time with her, of course, definitely even looks different than the same thing that or spending one-on-one time with either of my boys, and of course, the one is much smaller, and so we get to do different types of things. If I took him on a Bluey excursion or something like that, he would absolutely adore that versus my 8-year-old doesn't care about that and wants to do different things, kind of thing. And I think that that's the other key part that you said is that your kids are different than my kids. Guess what? My oldest is different than my youngest. And so I openly tell them, I'm not going to treat you the same. I'm going to love you the same. I love all of you. All three of you are my children, but I can't treat you the same because you're at different age levels and you have different personalities. And some of you get it and get it by certain means and understand certain things. And then others, I need to do something different for you to get it in life or just kind of bond. So, yeah, I think that's good. And I think that's really good practical knowledge for guys as to like what to do to really improve in fatherhood is just number one, just have that one-on-one time that is individual to that one. Like just because you took one to McDonald's and sat down and had hamburgers, the other one doesn't care about that. And the other one rather do something else. So do something that different with them. So that's pretty big. Let's see, what else do we have for Nate? Let's go off of what else on the practical tips, like stuff that guys can take tangibly out of here, probably out of your toolbox and say, man, this was something that was really cool that helped me bond, helped me get closer, helped me build up my boys. What were some practical tips for you outside of all the amazing knowledge that we already talked about?
I should not ever try to impress my boys. Although it's, their dad's the strongest dad in the world. Their
Clearly.
dad's the most handsome man in the world. Their dad's Batman. I I don't need to impress my boys.
You're
I
Batman
think
too.
I knew it. Okay. We talk about being president. I just got to share the gospel,
Mhm.
live the gospel, breathe the gospel. And I'm not saying, hey, you got to sit there and preach at them. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you got to just live the gospel out in front of your kids. That is the most and the best way to demonstrate in any biblical fatherhood is they have to see the gospel. They have to see the sin. They have to see the reason why God came for sin. And they have to see, the payment for sin. And then they have to see the life that we get to have in Christ because he died for our sin. And I think when you display the gospel for them, it will show that doesn't matter how much they fail, I will never not love my child.
Mhm.
I will never stop loving them. So for anyone, it doesn't matter what your child does. And I don't know if this is speaking to someone who's estranged from their child, their child's a prodigal. Never stop loving your kid. And you don't have to enable them. Loving them is not giving them the money that they're asking for. Loving them sometimes is just holding off on the money. Loving them is showing the gospel is like, hey, you need to see the bad before you can get the good.
Mhm.
And I think you got to show them the gospel. Some other advice I would say that to take a key takeaway is we're going to doubt in life and we will doubt our faith, but we should never question our faith while we stand in our doubts, but we should be able to question our doubts while we stand in our faith.
Mm.
And if we are standing in our faith, even the faith of a mustard seed will move mountains. No, I'm not saying it's going to be a literal mountain moved, but if we start questioning our own faith when we're in our doubts, it's going to be wishy washy and nothing's going to hold. But stand in the ounce of faith that you have, this small amount of faith, and that will move a mountain in your child's life. It will move a mountain in your relationship with your child in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not in your time, not my time, that we can see it. Like in my perspective, is it's going to happen in the now, but it's like a crock pot, not a microwave. Parenting your kid, they will always be your child. I don't care if you're 90 and they are 70 years old, they're still your child. They're probably a granddad by now, but there is a legacy in which you have developed in your kids that you must hold true to. And then it's always displaying that gospel. And the last practical advice I would give is that we often want to we want to prepare the path for the child. We say, hey, you're gonna go to the military, or hey, you're gonna do this, or hey, you're gonna do that, or this is
Mhm.
what I want you to do.
Yeah,
Since
yeah.
I was this, don't ever try to prepare the path for your child. God prepares the path. Just prepare your child for that path, helping them with a sound mind, praying for your child, praying for your spouse who's raising your child. It all plays an important part. So those are some practical things. I don't know if I even touched on those in the interview, but that's what I would want people to leave here with today is don't impress, just be present in their life, show them the gospel, question your doubts when you're standing in your faith, and then prepare the child for the path.
Yeah, scripture that comes to mind is raise up a child in the way that he should go, and they shall not depart from it. And I think that sometimes that scripture is hard for certain parents because they see a kid running in a direction that's opposite or antithetical to how you raised them if you did raise them in a Christian home. But I think that where that comes into truth is that the majority of kids that were taught the love of Christ. They may stray for a while, and I'm definitely one of them. I strayed for a while. I was like, I was raised in a military home. Guess what? You know, your outcome is based on your decisions, right? And everything you do, it's all about you, and your path is about your choices, and you, right? And so the whole idea of following Jesus and not following yourself and what you want to do with your life was very weird. But that came around. Jesus started showing me and leading me in certain areas, and I kind of kept taking the bait, taking the bait, and then he answered a prayer, and I came to faith, and so it was wild how by him answering a prayer while I was still yet a sinner helped me really see that this faith is real. Romans 5:8. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And that's a big deal. So I want to give that hope to any parents that are out there with dealing with children that are young adults and they're doing crazy stuff, they're straying, they're going a different path, all these kinds of things, because there's some hard things that we see in our society nowadays and all of that. And you're a pastor, I'm in church, I'm the men's director at my church and been in ministry for a while as well. And so I've definitely heard both of us are in scenarios where we still have mom at home, but what would be your advice for single dads or dads that are trying to co-parent through a divorce or anything like that from your experience as a pastor and helping them out and dealing with that?
Imputation is the word. You got to see how your kids see you as a father, how they see your mom. You got to self empty. You got to see each other through not your own eyes. I think the other key word is kenosis. It's a self emptying of yourself.
Hmm.
Even in a divorce, it's not about you, about your wants and your needs. You've got kids, and sometimes that divorce is going to be challenging, especially whatever the circumstances are.
Hmm.
But you've got a co-parent. You're still a parent. You're still the mom. You're still the dad. Though you're not united, you're still the mom and dad of that child. And for the child, you're their everything. And when everything has been divided, it's hard for them to have any foundation. But if any child who has been implanted, even before that divorce, again, you need to have that foundational of them to have that gospel. And unfortunately, there's some people who are listening will not have that opportunity. They're they're in the middle of that divorce without even having that beforehand. Start now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 20 years from now, you're like, "God, I really wish I would have planted that tree to have some fruit." Well, the best time to plant a tree is now, or is actually 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just plant the tree now, and then the fruit will come. Just be patient. Be patient in it. I don't know if that answered the question or not.
No, I think definitely it does to a degree. I think the other thing that I've seen through other relationships, both in my family and everywhere else, I'll add to is both husband and or both father and mother that are no longer husband and wife don't trash each other in front of your kids. Like number one, like absolutely number one, because I've seen the devastation of actually how that plays out. You know, like your anger towards your ex needs to subside and realize that is not expressed to the kids, right? That's again, like you said, like a lot of things happen between, behind closed doors and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I think that that's a big thing for if you're going through a divorce, and it could be nasty. He did you wrong, she did you wrong, whatever the case may be, in like really hurtful ways. And I'm not downplaying that, but don't let your kids feel that,
Mm.
because that to the kids, you're still dad. And to the kids, she's still mom. And if you have more grace, realize that that's going to go further than your anger will.
Yeah, and the kids will pin that against you, and it makes them more chaotic than in the future than what should be. Yeah. So yeah, again, if you're wrestling as a parent right now who's listening to this and you went through this divorce, don't ever use your anger towards your ex in front of your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have, apologize. Start now. Start now saying, you know what? I may not agree with what they just did or who they are, who they're seeing or what they're doing. But don't ever communicate that in front of your kids. So do me a favor. We're raising up young, godly men and women, and talking about people in front of them is not godly. And that's gotta stop. So yeah, you gotta squelch it here and now.
Yeah, no, and I think what you just said is like, hey, we don't talk about other people like that in front of the kids. That goes beyond just, your ex-husband or your ex-wife type thing. That goes other members in the church, like all the kinds of like, don't talk bad about other people in front of the kids, kind of deal. Because really what you're displaying is your character, not theirs. So that's pretty big, man. Dude, I think we've had a great chat here. I just want to thank you so much for being on, Nate, bro. Like I just want to let you know, like Nate here has been such a absolute powerhouse in my life in this past year. First off, like my man, like I won this hat on the jam, right? He does these raffles. Like, by the way, who
Looks
does
good on.
thank you. Who does this is a hand painted hat. Like this is
Yeah.
actual hand paint. Like who painted this, by the way?
I gave her this design, and it's
Mm-hmm.
my niece. She's not young. She's 20 now,
Okay.
and she does all this side stuff like does formats, does that, and she's like, I can make that for you. I was like, do it, and yeah, she just took that on.
That's awesome. So Nate does these and does some raffles for them and, raising money for great causes on the jam. He raises money to be able to send Bibles out to people that need one for free. So it's free to them and coming out of the generous hearts of those wanting to pour into his ministry and all kinds of stuff like that. And so you guys are going to be able to find all the different links to get a hold of Nate if you want to get a hold of him, of Pastor Nate here. If you would need him to either come and speak, you need to reach out to him. And definitely, if you're on TikTok, and if you're not, get an account and join the Jamly with us. Monday through Friday, typically East Coast time. To me, it's like 9 to 11 is typically when you're on East Coast time. So, but I know you're Central and things like that. But when I won this hat, this is just like the heart of Nate. Like I win this hat, and he sends it to me. And I open this box, and not only do I have that hat, but my man sends me a beanie that is of his
Yeah.
logo as well. My kids already took it and ran away with it. It was a little squishy banana thing
Should have
that
gave
was
more.
it was in the box. I've got you hand me like a handful of stickers and a handwritten note, not an AI written note, not like a printed off thing or a handwritten note that, that somebody that actually cares for people and wants to see the joy of the Lord be shared amongst other people. And so make sure to definitely pick up Nate in all the different places so you can see. Now, do you stream your services at church as well?
Yeah, we do. We stream those on YouTube. They're there. We're getting a church app, and of course, those in the church will have the app, but it's available on YouTube. And I can put that link there, and all those links that I'll give you, it'll be towards the bottom and say watch live Sunday mornings.
So, hey, Nate's an outstanding guy. Man, I can't thank you enough. We're going to see more of Nate on Valor and Vision here. Absolutely. As we'll do more of these. And then hopefully, I know you got another chair next to you right now. So I need to be sitting in that chair at some point. And then I've got another chair over here that's got your name written all over it as well. And so we'll be doing some in-person ones as well as time goes on. So, but Nate, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us today. And you've really blessed us. So thank you, bro.
Well, Nick, thank you. I appreciate you letting me be on episode number 4. Though it wasn't number 1, I'll still take 4. It'll be all right.
Number 1's the boring one, right? It's just a dumb intro. It's the boring one. I had to like build up at least some kind of, so an audience for you to come on. Like, all right, building the audience for you. Okay, so. All right, brother. We're going to cancel it here, but this is, of course, the first of many that we're going to have Nate on here. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Take care. God bless. Make sure that we exercise valor in our life and go after the vision that we have. God bless.